Baking pancakes, making bacon pancakes. Take some bacon and I'll put it in a pancake. Bacon pancakes, that's what it's gonna make. Bacon pancakes. Bacon pancakes, making bacon pancakes. Take some bacon and I'll put it in a pancake.
It's 11:59 at Radio Free America. This is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
Hey, welcome everybody to our Daily Gun Show. We come to you live each weeknight at midnight Eastern for about an hour. We talk about guns. Or tonight it'll just be me talking about guns, so it'll be a short show. I'm going to screen capture here, and we'll take a look at a couple of things I posted over on the Instagrams. So we do this show on the daily. A couple of goals. One is to have a conversation about guns that isn't steered by the media, that isn't based on whatever political strategy they have going on. Instead, just to talk about guns. Sometimes we nerd out, sometimes we talk about movies or something, sometimes we talk about Second Amendment issues or advocacy. One of my personal favorites is talking nuts and bolts with people who like to create content of their own. So one of my projects has always been the two-way history, and I've been calling it the two-way history project lately. And one element of that is the guncalendars.com. And so I have a website with a bunch of calendar on it with a bunch of Second Amendment dates, military anniversaries, and births, deaths, inventions, a lot of firearms related things. And having a website is one thing, but another way to bring that history out is to get it on the other platforms. So a way of doing that is to do a quick video that I do those at the beginning of the month for whatever's coming up during the month. And I do it that way as opposed to any other, in batches like that. Because during the month, I'll set aside time whenever possible to research more dates and add more to the calendar. People are helping with that. At the calendar, you can suggest dates. People email us with dates. So as we add to the calendar, when we do these once a month, it's easy to have it up to date. If I did them too far out in advance, I wouldn't have it complete, in other words. Anyway, so I did that for July, just posted that up as a thank you to our patrons who make that possible. And we do the chairs against the wall thing.
Right now, I've got a few words for some of the brothers and sisters in the occupied zone.
Right, that comes from the movie Red Dawn, but there's more to it than that. I think we actually have a website out there called the Chairs Against the Wall, or John has a long mustache, both of them. And those websites describe where those messages come from the Radio Free America, broadcasting out to occupied France and letting the resistance fighters know when the invasion was about to start or whatever other kind of codes. So hearkening to that, I guess, they used it in Red Dawn. And in Red Dawn, it's a group of people that decided to act, that decided to do something. And that portion of the show, or that portion of the movie, is those people finding some way to communicate, at least in one-way communication with the outside world for the first time in a while, at least at that point in the movie. And in a lot of ways, that's what we base this show on, is getting the word out there for people who want to act. So I just figured I'd mention that since we play that thing at the beginning of the show. And it's not because I just think it's cool sounding or whatever. It's I think it has significance. And I don't know if I've ever mentioned that before, so since I'm here by myself, you get to hear about that. I put a couple of links out there, but nobody's biting, so I guess we'll go on to the next thing, which was the Star Spangled Banner thing that Midnight sent me. And it sounded pretty neat. I never really thought about it. I've heard the story of the Star Spangled Banner, but never this way, and I like it. I've heard as Francis Scott Key sitting out in a boat and watching the flag still sit there. but never with this preface, I guess, or with this full story. So I'm going to play however long of this before we get copyrighted, and we'll show something else. We'll show what's happening on the YouTube side. So we got a couple people out there. Ozzy and Patriot, thanks for jumping in. First is out there. All right, come on. Garbage music here.
Holding the American prison full of humanity men. The colonies were in. However, to a ball game, we stand in our story. Francis Scott memorized it as a child, but we've never really thought about what it means. Let me tell you a story. Francis Scott Key was a lawyer in Baltimore. The colonies were engaged in vicious conflict with the mother country, Britain. Because of this conflict and the protractedness of it, they had accumulated prisoners on both sides. The American colonies had prisoners and the British had prisoners. And the American government initiated a move. They went to the British and they said, let us negotiate for the release of these prisoners. They said, we want to send a man out to discuss this with you. They were holding the American prisoners in boats about 1,000 yards offshore. They said, we want to send a man by the name of Francis Scott Key. He will come out and negotiate to see if we can make a mutual exchange. On the appointed day in a rowboat, he went out to this boat and he negotiated with the British officials. And they reached a conclusion that men could be exchanged on a one-for-one basis. Francis Scott Key, jubilant with the fact that he'd been successful, went down below in the boats, and what he found was a cargo hold full of humanity, men. And he said, men, I've got news for you tonight. You're free. He said, tonight I have negotiated successfully your return to the colonies. He said, you'll be taken out of this boat, out of this filth, out of your chains. As he went back up on board to arrange for their passage to the shore, the admiral came and he said, we have a slight problem. He said, we will still honor our commitment to release these men, but it'll be merely academic after tonight. It won't matter. Francis Scott Key said, what do you mean? He said, well, Mr. Key, he said, tonight we have laid an ultimatum upon the colonies. Your people will either capitulate and lay down the colors of that flag that you think so much of, or you see that fort right over there, Fort Henry? He said, we're going to remove it from the face of the earth. He said, how are you going to do that? He said, if you will, scan the horizon of the sea. And as he looked, he could see hundreds of little dots. And he said, that's the entire British war fleet. He said, all of the gunpowder, all of the armament is being called upon to demolish that fort. It will be here within striking distance in a matter of about 2.5 hours. He said, the war's over. These men would be free anyway. He said, you can't show that fort. He said, that's a large fort. He said, it's full of women and children. He says, it's predominantly not a military fort. He said, don't worry about it.
All right, I wanted to get copyrighted, so that's 3 minutes in. So that was interesting, though. I never had heard, or at least I haven't recalled or reclaimed, whatever. I haven't remembered that it was Key went out, Francis Scott Key went out there to negotiate, and so he was on the boat, and the British kind of said, okay, we're about to kick the shit out of the United States here. Cycle brought up, this isn't the Revolutionary War. You're right, this is the War of 1812. So this is when England and a bunch of other people came over here and started kicking our ass again. And we already had this flag, and we had Fort Henry, and I guess we had been taken prisoners. They'd been taken prisoners. So this lawyer guy, poet, is out on the boat doing this negotiation, and they're like, sure, but why don't you hold on, since we're about to pummel that fort over there into submission until they take down the flag and give up and become a colony. And this is the rest of the song, or I mean, this is the rest of the story. So basically the English were like, yeah, we're going to whale on that fort over there until you Americans give up and quit calling yourself Americans and go back to being a colony. And there's a bunch of prisoners down below in the boat, and they're saying, hey, what's going on? And then they said, hey, you're about to bomb a bunch of women and children and stuff. This isn't a military fort, really. It's just a fort. And they're like, yeah, well, no problem. All you got to do is take down that flag and surrender, and we will quit bombing you. We're just going to bomb the shit out of you until you surrender. So you've got an out. We're not going to just slaughter you. As soon as you surrender, we'll stop immediately. So I'm going to fast forward to not get copyrighted here.
Paces from down below, all he could hear the men, the prisoners, saying was, "Tell us where the flag is. What have they done with the flag? Is the flag still flying over the rampart? Tell us." 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours into the shelling, every time the bomb would explode and it would be close to the flag, they could see the flag in the illuminated red glare of that bomb, and Francis Scott Key would report down to the men below, "It's still up. It's not down." The Admiral came and he said, "Your people are insane." He said, "What's the matter with them? Don't they understand this is an impossible situation?" Francis Scott Key said he remembered what George Washington had said. He said, "The thing that sets the American Christian apart from all other people in the world is he will die on his feet before he'll live on his knees." The Admiral said, "We have now instructed all of the guns to focus on the rampart to take that flag down." He said, "We don't understand something. Our reconnaissance tells us that that flag has been hit directly again and again and again, and yet it's still flying. We don't understand that." But he said, "Now we're about to bring every gun for the next 3 hours to bear on that point." Francis Scott Key said the barrage was unmerciful. All that he could hear was the men down below praying. The prayer, "God, keep that flag."
Okay, so they want to keep the flag up because what the hell, right? They're all in this thing to win it. So I'm going to fast forward in again so that okay, copyrighted hopefully. And so now, again, this guy's out there. There's all these prisoners down below in these cages in this boat. And the deal is, if we give up, British boats, there's like hundreds of them, will quit pommeling us. And if we leave the flag up, then they're going to keep pommeling us. So they've been beating the shit out of us all night. They probably ran out of bullets, 9mm cannons.
Went to Fort Henry to see what had happened. And what he found had happened was that that flagpole and that flag had suffered repetitious direct hits. And when hit had fallen, but men, fathers, knew what it meant for that flag to be on the ground. Although knowing that all of the British guns were trained on it, walked over and held it up humanly until they died. Their bodies were removed and others took their place. Francis Scott Key said what held that flagpole in place at that unusual angle were patriots' bodies. He penned the song, "Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming. For the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that the flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet fly and wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?"
Yeah, so when you think about the lyric to that simple story, it really sums up that whole evening. Pretty cool. That was midnight. Send me that in email. Also hits home the whole letting the flag hit the ground. Anyway, so we got LS Cycle jumped in. Appreciate it. Got a couple of things we like to hit on the show each day. but don't have a lot of stuff on a schedule for today. Wanted to play that. And I think that's what this is, just a reminder. We can shut that off. We can talk about movie, so somebody can come up with a movie. Well, you'd like to hit a gun movie. I'd like to hit a gun shop every day. So Ellis, have you ever recommended a gun shop for us? I think you might have once.
Actually, I have a few times. Of course, I just got home from work and my mind is not exactly, focused at the moment.
Oh, that's right. You'll have at least 4 minutes to come up with a gun shop. So anyway, we'll come up with a gun shop in no hurry. Right, so I was just letting people know who are telling me, no, I don't want to be in your damn chat tonight. But what else we got? We like to talk about on Thursdays trainings. I don't know what kind of training we might want to talk about. So we'll look at the audience. That's all what it's about, is the interactivity anyway. So if anybody's got any ideas for topics tonight, we'll chat about those. Have you guys, is that news to you, that whole Star Spangled Banner thing? I mean, I'm sure I've heard of it in school, but I guess I hadn't heard that like preface to it.
No, I've heard it before. The interesting part was that a lot of people think that it had to do with the original War for Independence and don't understand that it's actually from the War of 1812, which was the second War of Independence that people kind of forget about. The British were not satisfied with the fact that we beat them the first time, and they came back and said, no, we're going to do this again. And we beat them a second time, in spite of the fact that they hired they made deals with the Indians and stuff against us and all that. The French Indian War, which is what the War of 1812 was, and it was pretty scary. Someone asked in the YouTube chat who the narrator was. I believe that was Paul. I can't remember his last name, but he's the guy that used to do the regular radio show where he used to call the pages out, and now page 3, and he would go to the next page. But that sounded like his voice.
Do you mean Paul Harvey?
Paul Harvey. Thank you very much.
I don't think it's Paul Harvey though. It didn't.
It didn't sound like his cadence.
Oh, it sounded like him to me.
No, I think he's right. Cadence or something. It sounded more like a preacher type of guy or something. I'm not familiar. Sounded like he was in a church or something.
This is the rest of the story. I used to love Paul Harvey.
Well, we got a recommendation for a movie, The Patriot. So we'll talk about that one. Have you guys seen The Patriot?
Yeah.
Yes, it's just been a while.
That's Mad Max before during the American Revolution, and
Mel Gibson
goes to war, comes back, and there's all kinds of stuff happening. It's a pretty cool movie. I like it.
Actually, he was a pacifist to start.
I thought he went to war and came back, and that's why he was a pacifist.
No, he was a pacifist, and then they killed his kid.
They killed his son, and then he started killing them.
So it looks like I need to watch it again too. Then.
Yeah.
I remember there was axe throwing.
Yeah, I think he did throw some axes in that one, and stole a British general's dogs, which I thought was great, by the way. How about the Big Red One? That's a good gun movie, war movie.
I haven't seen that one in a while.
Lee Marvin, Mark Hamill.
Yeah, I watched it not too long ago. I remember talking about it. Yeah, it's a neat one.
I always thought that was a very good movie.
Doug is saying he had been in the French and Indian War, so that's what I was remembering, and then that's why he was a pacifist. the War of 1812 also then, or was it Revolutionary War?
Oh, it doesn't make any sense because the only 2 times we fought the British were during the French and Indian War and during the Civil War.
Wait, what? The anniversary? The Revolutionary War, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, the French and Indian War, we didn't fight the British, right? Well, I'm going to go look at the Patriot. Is it the Patriot about the Revolutionary War, or is it about the War of 1812?
I missed that last part.
No, it says, well, I just quit talking because I was looking. It says the Colonel Militia during the American Revolution.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It was during the Revolutionary War, yeah.
So the French and Indian War was after the Revolutionary War, correct?
Oh, yeah, 30 years later.
All right, well, we got a lot of dead air. So I guess that was our movie. And then he was at war, then decided to be a pacifist after seeing the violent war. That's what I thought. But then it was some kind of Indian war, I guess, they're saying.
Well, that was the War of 1812 was the French and Indian War. But it was the British who paid them. No, I don't believe that's true. I don't think that the French and Indian War was prior to the Revolution. I believe the French and Indian War was after.
You're saying the British paid the French?
No, the British paid the Indians and the French were on our side.
Right, that's what I thought. So this says the French and Indian War comprised North American theater of the world 7 years, 1756 to 1763. So that would be pre-1776.
Oh, then I'm mistaken because the other one was 1812. So
yeah, they're saying this pitted the colonies of British America against those of New France. So was the French and the Indians were ganging up on us? Oh, was that when the Canadians burned down our? No, we wouldn't have had a White House yet. Yeah, I don't know.
No, it was the British that burned the capital of Washington. Burned the White House. That happened during the War of 1812, I thought. And the guy that was narrated in the prior piece was David Matherson. I just looked that up.
Do we know who that is? Like, what did he do?
I'd never heard of the guy before, so you got me on that one.
Okay.
But you're right. I thought it was Paul Harvey, but it was not. It was David Matherson.
So on August 24th, 1814, after defeating Americans at the Battle of Bladensburg, a British force led by Major Robert Ross burned down buildings, including the White House, known as the Presidential Mansion, blah, blah, blah. So that was...
Yeah, that was 1812. The War of 1812, which went for a couple, 2-3 years, yeah.
I guess it was set on fire twice. Since the founding of the United States in 76, the fire occurred during the War of 1812. James Madison was the president. The second of fire was in 1929. So I think the other one was just some kind of fire. I don't think anybody burned it down in 1929.
No, somebody probably dropped a candle or something.
Yeah, that's probably when electric was bad or something. So. All right, well, we're learning history all over the place. And since we're talking history, I'm going to go look at gun history. And I have not, so I'm going to be digging through it here. But, yeah, weird day today because nobody's jumping in. And gun shows, that's just sitting there. You're the last person typing there. And unless something's broke. And what's today, the 5th? No. It is the 5th.
Yeah, shame on you people for not being over on gun channels.
That's all right. When YouTube finally gets rid of all the gun stuff, then you know they'll be over here because they'll have to be.
Yeah, pretty much.
But they'll be, you know, second-class gun channel citizens.
Yeah, I thought I was a second-class gun channel citizen.
No, I'm third-class bulk rate.
Okay.
1945, today, 1945, MacArthur announced that the liberation of the Philippines from its Japanese occupiers was complete. We got Philippines. In 1954, the B-52A bomber made its maiden flight. 1954, they still fly them.
Yeah, those things are amazing. That's another great movie, right? The one that what's his name was in? Oh shit, I can't remember his name.
B-52s?
Yeah.
I'm not thinking of a B-52 movie.
James Stewart.
You're talking like the B-36 or whatever, the giant one?
No, I think it was B-52.
Well, there's the movie called Strategic Air Command, and that's the B-36.
Oh, maybe that's the one I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Where they crash in like the winter somewhere, like the snow at the end, and then they have to find them. They're like on a long range flight, and they run out of gas or something, or do something, and they crash.
I have never seen that movie, and that's probably because it's got Jimmy Stewart in it, and that guy's voice just drives me crazy.
The only movie where you'll get a B-36, which is the largest plane we ever made, and we didn't really use them because they were made at the end of the war. They had both jets and propellers on them. They were the largest thing we ever pushed up into the air with nuclear bombs in it, because after that we went to missiles. So it's kind of a neat movie just to be able to see, they have real footage of those planes taking off and stuff where they're massive, massive planes. Make everything else look like little tiny airplanes. It was like the end of the let's make the planes bigger type of era. And then they started getting smaller and more weird looking. Statue of Liberty reopened after being refurbished in 1986. That's the speech that we listened to yesterday was Reagan at the Statue of Liberty in 86. So that was a pretty good one. Kind of weird. I searched for the speeches yesterday, and you can't find very many inspirational speeches. It's definitely dominated on Google search. Very interesting phenomenon.
You looking up the fifth?
Oh, I'm looking at the fifth on this military history one.
Oh, okay. All right.
Tons and tons. If you find anything interesting, feel free to throw it in there.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, because it's just 6 out here already.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I always just pick whatever's. This one happens to just give me the date, so I picked today since it's still the fifth. All right. Well, I've been just reading all these interesting things, but I'm not really saying any of them. So I guess we'll dig into something else. None on this date. So Congressional Medal of Honors. I usually look down the bottom of this list to see how many were awarded, and none. Massive, massive numbers the last few days. So that was the end of Gettysburg, more than likely. A lot of people died. All right. Well, that's interesting. I'm going to just maybe do a whole show just looking through that thing. Somebody could. So, oh, it looks like Angelina's out there. We should probably send her a link. Let's see. Did we talk about a movie? Did Ellis ever come up with a gun shop? Did we give you enough time?
Plantation Iron, Bluffton, South Carolina. Very nice shop. I've actually done an interview with the owner of the show. His name's Steve.
Hold on. Plan what?
Plantation Iron.
You saying the number 9?
Yeah, no, I said Plantation Iron. IRON.
There we go. Plantation Iron. All right.
Bluffton, South Carolina.
You would think they would make like cultivators and stuff like that.
Mm.
They take cultivator blades and turn them into guns.
Plowshares. Yeah.
So you said you've been to this store and you've interviewed the owner of the shop?
I certainly have.
Right on.
It's on the playlist.
Cool.
So how long have they been there? What's the deal?
Oh, they've been there for quite a while, apparently. It's not a huge shop by any stretch of the imagination, but he's got, for what it is, he's got a great selection. I think he orders from Davidson's, so he can get just about anything he wants special order. But he's got, when I went in there, he had a nice little selection of AKs. He had an M1. He had a couple of British carbines in there that I thought were kind of cool, including a Tavor. So he's got a nice selection of rifles and handguns.
Interesting. So I noticed on their one page here, they didn't have a lot of pictures, but they had some sort of testimonial, I guess. After my father passed away, I had no idea what to do with this collection. They helped me consign his guns, and they were very knowledgeable and fair. So that makes me think, if you're looking to go check out gun shops, I mean, there are people all the time who let go of collections for all kinds of reasons, right? And those local shops are places where they get, changed hands. And what could be a boring shop 99% of the time, for a couple of weeks there, might be rocking if somebody brought in a Mosin Nagant collection or something that you're interested in, right?
Some of the best guns I own are consignment guns.
Like this Craig Hoff ladder shotgun mix. This way, if the birds are like, you have to climb up the tree to get to the birds, you can use this. You want to put the barrel down and climb up the ladder, and then use the stock to pull the ladder, which is also the shotgun back up to you.
I don't think it works that way.
Does
No.
Yeah, you tie a rope to the stock.
This is
You pull the gun up after you.
these are people that are too lazy to bring their head all the way down to the gun. Ugh, all the way down to the barrel. Ugh. Can you put me some kind of giant riser on there? All right.
Oh, it's those guys that have those really big square lantern jaws, and they can't get their head all the way down on a gun.
Or for like those
Like
giant.
like Kirk Douglas, he would need a gun like this.
That is pretty neat, though. Bunch of belt buckle knives, as in the survivors. Robin Williams. Colt Derringers. What's this looking thing? Air rifle? That's a weird look.
Now, when you first went to look at the website, it looked like they do hunts and stuff there as well.
They definitely, this is an air rifle, isn't it? What's going on? Do you have one of these guns, Cycle?
No, God, no.
You know what it is?
I've never seen one. No.
That weird looking action there. That's some kind of weird action. Look, oh, that's a lever. But this part here, I can't get it to stay. But that thingy there that I'm kind of sticking my crosshair on,
Yeah.
that's some sort of button. It looks like it's like some kind of weird Luger looking thing, maybe. Or else it's an air gun. I never heard of such a thing. Now I gotta go.
Yeah, I only own 2 air guns, so you got me.
I've never seen that before either. Whatever that is new for me.
It's an air gun. We're done. All right, so very cool. So this is nearby, or this like you visit it when you're?
Oh, that's where I do the FFLs
Look at this.
transfers.
Look at this. Your name is on their website, dude. It says Ellis right on their damn website, right there.
Yep, that's me.
All right, well, so obviously you're in with Big Plantation, so this is a big.
Oh,
scam.
shameless self-promotion. I see that.
You getting paid by this place? They'll give you the air gun or this Charter Arms Explorer too.
No. They're a nice bunch of guys. That if you're in the area and you want a decent gun shop with fair prices, you're not going to go wrong with Plantation. It's a good place.
Right on. Well, I like a place that puts Russian, or maybe like I said, is Chinese, 7.62 by 39 on the cover. Oh, it's Chinese, and then this is what you're talking about with hunting.
Yeah, I thought I saw a. Yeah, there you go. There's a deer down. Dove hunting, maybe.
All right. Right on. So that's the whole point, is talk about different gun shops every day. We'll stick that one in the show notes. Anybody that wants to check that out can go check it out on their website. Thanks, Ellis, for coming up with our gun shop today. If anybody wants to suggest a shop, you can always email us, dailygunshow@gmail.com. We're happy to feature in your gun shop every single day. Angelina showed up late. We're almost over. This is the new.
It's pretty much how I got through high school. So.
Did you get the ET forms filled out like I asked you?
No. You know I don't do anything. I'm like the shittiest. I'm the weakest link.
Oh.
Well. Yeah, I was late, so I won't collect a check, but I'll be even better on the next show.
There you go.
Right on. Well, you have a lot of English in you, from what I understand, so it must be difficult going through yesterday.
Yeah, it was a really hard time for my family. We all had to hide, and some of us were allowed out in the light, some of us were not. But yeah, it was a difficult time. We got through it.
I was talking to a group of Brits on the ham radio the other day, and I wished them a happy Ungrateful Colonist Day, so that worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I got a bunch of, so all my like family in England was like, "Happy 4th of July, I bet you miss us now." And I was like, nope, still don't.
Do you think they'll ever get over that? 13 colonies kicking the ass of the greatest power on earth at the time?
No, they won't. English are a stubborn lot.
Well, we're not the first ones to ever do that either.
No, but we're the best ones, so.
Amen.
We're definitely like the greatest success story. Like, oh, they beat our ass. Now look at them.
Well, we're the scruffiest ones that ever did it.
Well, America.
All right. So let's see. We've talked about a gun shop. We like to do that every day. We talk about a movie. We also do that. We talk about history a little bit, which is another thing we're into. And we didn't talk about training too much. But what are you going to do? So that is pretty much the show today. We also like to talk about the other things that are happening out there, that are efforts from regular people doing firearms-related stuff. So we usually talk about the shows over on Gun Channels. The morning start off with Early Watch, move into the live open discussions hosted by Mr. Knives from California. Tomorrow's Friday, so the evening shows will start off with, I can't remember the shows as soon as I start talking. Go over here to the schedule, where we keep the schedule for all the shows.
Well, Clover has a Friday night show, right?
Oh yeah, I can always think of them, because I write them down.
Firearms Friday. Yeah, Firearms Friday.
Just that I never remember the order when I start talking. So yeah, Right at the People is Budget Guns and Gear at 7 p.m. Eastern. Then Jelsma's back. He does fur and firearms on Fridays now. At least that's the plan. That'll be at 9 p.m. Eastern. Then Clover Tech's Firearms Friday, 10 p.m. Eastern, followed up by Edge of the Week out of San Antonio. So 3 Texas shows. Where's Budget from? Not Texas, I don't think. But there's 3 Texas shows on Friday. Anyway, then we wrap up the week with the Daily Gun Show at midnight. So, Ellis, you got anything coming up? Didn't you start doing another show each week, or are you just doing the interview shows now?
Not another show. I do my interview shows on Monday nights at 11, and then on Tuesday nights. Here lately, that's been hit or miss. Tuesday night, but I normally do the Tuesday night show between 6 and 6:30. Just here lately, like I said, I've been going camping and fishing and everything on Tuesday, so I try to put something out on about that time. I go live for a little while if I can get a signal, and then I'll hit you with a late night show whenever the mood strikes. So, and this week I am supposed to have C4 Defense on the Monday night show, so Sarge should be there this Monday.
That Tuesday show is pretty much, as I remember it, always been pretty much a hit or a miss. Mostly
Well, thank you. Thank you, Dano. You know what happened? It was great until you left.
A
You know,
while.
Ellis, you are quick as a whip, aren't you?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What about your roast?
That's going to be in about 2.5 weeks, I think, on a Monday night. We are going to roast Never Enough Ammo, so that ought to be fun.
This is a slow roast. Did you start talking about that like a month ago?
No. I'd like
Is
to
this
see
like one of those all day? You know, you put the pig down in the earth with the coals, and it's got to be on there for like 12, 16 hours before it's ready.
well, it might last that. It might last that long, but we're putting this pig on alive.
We were talking about last night. All right. So what we forget to talk about often is what happens after this show. There's 25 people watching this show. We do appreciate that. So if you were looking for something to do throughout the evenings, depending on where you are, or throughout the night, a lot of times there's a live show after this one. Potatoes, who has an invite but didn't feel like jumping in, will often run Tater Tube. It's a late night open room. Knives sometimes has one of his chats running. Angelina is sometimes known to have some sort of a girly chat. And
Sometime, maybe tonight.
other people will also host chats. Anybody's welcome to. So if whatever, if you want to talk about something, or like Dead Horse, if he wants to talk about a topic, often he'll just start a room up on that topic, invite people in to talk about it, or like I say, people will open up rooms. So what it's all about, be creative with it. If you know people that are interested in participating and creating, I'll let them know about gun channels and dig into the stuff if you haven't before. It can be weird, but they can be really in depth sometimes. You get Hosh on the right night, it can be some in-depth conversations. All right,
And
well,
everybody likes talking to Hosh. He's a great guy.
except Angelina.
I like Hosh.
Trying to create controversy. So,
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't like Hosh.
So, all right. Well, I guess that's it. Yeah, I know you want
Something about there can only be one California in the room at a time.
California's not big enough.
Well, I thought it had to do with maybe, you know, the whole state is splitting apart, so maybe that was why.
I think me and Hosh would be in the same new state. Like when California split happens, I think we would actually be in the same state.
By happenstance or by choice?
By like wherever the borders are, I think we would still be in the same state.
Yeah, because they take San Francisco and Los Angeles. Not like they draw a line right down the middle of Los Angeles.
But what seems weird is those two cities from the outside politically look to me very much identical.
So San Francisco and
yeah, basically go from the ocean to about 75 miles inland, all the way up and down from Oakland on south to San Diego.
Geographically, you mean then?
No, politically.
I thought you were gonna start singing California Love just now.
California what?
California Love by Tupac.
Oh, I don't know anything about that.
Well, neither do I.
It's been a long time since we had Dano sing or just recite rap lyrics.
Yes.
So
I can do it, but I definitely need a script.
Patriot has a question about using Uber and Lyft and going back and forth from a gun shop or the range.
I've done it.
The question will be incoming here. Heard a noise, so that means somebody's chatting on the gun channel side. Night Strike is throwing something about the California Proposition 9 3-state initiative.
Night Strike, I need to talk to you, by the way.
Oh, that's that thing where they want to divide California into 3 things.
Yeah. And by the way, Angelina, since you are from California, I'm going to assume you are the subject matter expert on this. So when is that vote, and is it for sure?
I think they're trying to put it on November, and I hope not, because that's stupid. Don't ruin my beloved California. Leave it as it is.
Just get rid of the liberals. California would be great.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can deal with liberals. What I can't deal with is just dumbasses that are uninformed, and that's pretty much what they all are.
Well, sometimes to save the body, you must amputate part of it.
True.
Not ideal. It's messy. It's painful, but must be done.
I'm thinking about taking off a couple of the outside toes to make myself lighter and also aid in swimming.
Oh, so it's like a fin?
Well, think of it this way. It would be a brand out of the past 50-some years I've been alive. That would be the first brand new idea I've ever heard for weight reduction. How to shave a few pounds.
Don't.
Want a few pounds off for the weekend to look hot in that bikini on the beach? Well, just chop a few fingers.
I don't know if Patriot is going to ask us a question, or was the question about going to and from the gun shop? Is that a big deal? Do you care when it is an Uber-ish?
Oh, as far as passengers?
Yeah, like is it allowed?
Does Uber have like a list, like you can't take somebody to a porn place or a weird place or something, or a violent place?
Are they allowed to transport firearms?
Can you take an Uber to a drug place where it's legal and then drive home with the drugs?
Generally speaking, whether you're working or not, you're not supposed to be committing a crime, period.
Well, I mean the passenger, like if somebody Ubers you over and says, hey, give me a ride over to the drug place, I'm going to buy a bunch of drugs, and then drive you home.
If I'm aware of it and getting compensated for it, that would make me part of the crime again.
Well, that's interesting. What happens in California and Nevada and all those places?
What about, well, here's a real question. So, say you're an Uber driver in California. I don't have a car. I need you to drive me to the gun shop so I can pick up my new shotgun. So is that against Uber law, or is that like a personal decision your driver can make, or?
It's not against the Uber rules, but it would be up to the driver. Since and again, you would know more about this next part than I do. But when the car gets pulled over, normally what's in the car is assumed to be the driver's.
Right.
And then you get into check with your local authorities.
I mean, if you're transporting it in the manner that California insists that you do, I can't see why it would be a problem for anyone. I mean, unless you're just like very anti-gun, you're like, oh no, you're not bringing that in my car.
Yeah, I mean, the driver always has the right to not accept a certain destination. Whether that's, as an example, maybe it's farther than he wants to go, or she.
So I just went live on Instagram. We're talking about whether or not Uber has, if Uber has a rule about taking someone to a range or a gun shop, and then if a driver for Uber can object to taking a gun shop or a gun range.
So is the ultimate, like at the end of the day, is it kind of like a driver refuses the right or reserves the right to refuse service? Like,
yes.
So I could, if I'm an Uber driver and I pull up and I'm like, no, these people aren't getting in my car, I could just be like, sorry, no.
Correct. But which is why I always, this question has never come up, but whenever passengers ask me what I'll call similar things, I always tell them, once you request a driver, text your driver with whatever issue you have, so that they can, if they're not cool with that, they can bow out of the drive and get you another driver quicker, rather than wait till the driver gets to you and then ask the question. And then it just wasted another 5-10 minutes of your time as well as their time. And now everybody's upset. Just ask it up front.
That's a good little piece of advice.
I mean, I would have certainly no problem as long as it's carried in my trunk.
Is that due to the law or just your personal preference?
Because unless that person has a carry permit, it has to be in the trunk by law.
Oh, okay.
and be carried in a, the ammo separate from the gun and carried in either the box it came in or something designed for it to be carried in.
Oh, that sounds very similar, comrade.
Yes, unfortunately, yes. But, again, keeping the driver informed saves you time, saves them time, and gets you, hopefully, the driver that will accommodate you that much sooner.
I took my first Uber ride in New Orleans, and it was actually a pretty good experience.
Good.
Well, y'all were talking about that. I have actually carried a gun in a Lyft car before.
Well, I drive for Lyft as well.
Back from a gun range.
And that's something that if you're getting picked up from a gun range, it's itself, unless it's somebody who's literally, I don't know what the word other than an idiot, when they pull into there and they see the sign on the business, like when I pull into a bar, if I'm not okay with picking up people that smell like alcohol, I should be doing something else for a job. And if you pull up to a place that says gun range on it, you should not be okay, or you should be doing something else for a living if you're not okay picking up people from a gun range. If it says gun range right in the front of the building.
All right, well, I'm going to interrupt and get to the question that started this all. Patriot is asking on the stupid YouTube, the bloated, dying corpse of a social platform. Patriot's over there for some reason asking this question. Going to a gun shop or range, it's not illegal, but there's Uber, or does Uber frown on taking those types of passengers? They seem to be very liberal about.
There is no rules against that. Where it would fall under is the driver always has the right to refuse a destination or a passenger.
Okay, so then you just use your Uber app and say, pick me up, and then somebody else says, oh, I'm on my way. And then they can make the decision to pick you up or not. So you're basically just inconvenienced if somebody has a real issue and happens to be the one that is linked with.
Yeah, and that's why earlier I suggested to Angela that you would text, after you made the request, like you just said, that you would text your driver, because you have the ability to do that through your app, of what your intentions are, so they know. So if they're not cool with it, they would bow out of the ride.
And then, but I feel like if you were gonna, that would be like bringing something up for no reason. It seems like to me. I don't Uber, but like,
well, because of most people are aware, whether they're involved in the gun industry or not, that Uber is a very liberal company.
All right. So is it the same with other things, I guess? Like if you're going to Uber home with a dirty skateboard or, I don't know, something like that, you just know not to Uber?
As an example, I know women drivers that don't do pickups at strip joints.
Oh, and that's okay. Uber's like, yeah, you can make that. Like you could say like, I'm not going to pick anybody up or take them to an abortion clinic, and they're like,
what?
Now again, their rule doesn't say the type of place. They just leave it up to the driver's discretion.
Right. Okay, so the driver can have any discretion they want, though.
Yes.
So it's not like it's an Uber policy. They're just going to stand behind whatever their driver comes up with.
Yes.
For the most part.
Because there's too many scenarios to try to write something like that in a policy.
For sure. And it doesn't sound, I'm not, unless I'm wrong, I don't Uber, but I haven't heard anything or people complain about it, so it can't be that big an issue, or is it?
No, it's not.
And then Patriot follows up with, I think he's just theoretically, I called Uber to pick me up, and I'm standing at the gun shop with a big bag of something. Are they going to say no, find another way? So I think you already said it, but just to answer his specific question there,
if somebody went grocery shopping, as long as I have room in my trunk, that's fine. If they have a dime bag, that's not okay.
So, I guess it depends on the gun shop too. I've been to gun shops where it's one of multiple storefronts in a place. So you're standing kind of in the wall between the gun shop and the lifting weights place next door. Then, what do they know what you got in your bag that's heavy?
Right, and I'll also throw in there, although it wasn't asked, if you're concealed carrying, then as long as you're concealed, why would you bring it up? You shouldn't, and therefore there's no issue.
Right. Hottie's saying, last time I was in an Uber, the driver told me he was retired Marine and he always carries. We had a good combo about guns and he had no problem he was carrying. So, again, sounds like it's up to their discretion. They do what they want, right?
Yeah, the driver can either accept the ride or say, I'm sorry, but you'll need to find another driver. And the driver can cancel the ride, so there is no charge at that point.
So I guess let me add to this. So we've talked about it in general, I guess, but now specifically Patriot, the person asking, is blind. So do you think that would change your answer, I guess? I think it would just depend. If there's somebody who's like, oh my goodness, I don't like the idea of a blind person at the range. That's a super racist bigot, like like an angry person, right? Like how can, I mean, they probably have all kinds of people they want to pick up. They're gonna get all worried about something like that.
I mean, so somebody who is if a driver has issues like that, it's going to show up in other ways through their ratings, since our ratings is our job security. Whether even just casual conversations in the car, maybe they're not carrying, but they're just talking about our Bill of Rights and things like that, and it comes in a casual conversation. Somebody like that who's so anti, it's going to come out, and it will be reflected in their ratings.
So now that you brought up ratings, when you are asking for a ride and the person, maybe you say, hey, I'm at the range, is that going to be a problem? I got my guns. And they say, F off, I'm not picking you up, or whatever. They say, no, I'm not going to pick you up, I'd rather not. Is there any rating situation there, or is that not a transaction?
It's not a rateable event because no ride occurred.
Okay, so you have no retaliation or way of doing anything really. And the way that I understand it, you can't like signal that as a person I'd rather not get a ride from ever again.
Now, if the person said something that was illegal or you consider to be immoral, by all means, please save that text and send that into Uber or Lyft. Because Lyft and Uber do want to know if they have a problem driver out there. Like, I got in the car and the person smelled like alcohol, or I got in the car and the person used the N-word, or whatever it happens to be. I mean, just some sort of, or I got in the car and there was this other person in the car and it was their child or something like that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's bad people in society. That means there's going to be bad people making pizzas. There's going to be bad people driving Ubers and Lyft.
Well, you're not supposed to bring your kid. I can understand that, but they really can't. The Uber can't have an objection to if you bring your puppy with you and you put your puppy in a baby seat. There's no problem with that.
Well, actually, they do, because they expect to use every seatbelt that's available. So let's say if you have 5 seatbelts, including the one that you're sitting in, that means they may send you to go pick up somebody that has 4 passengers. What are you going to do with that dog?
And that they can hold your puppy like a baby.
They could if they're dog lovers.
All right. Well, we've been broadcasting on Instagram. I thought it was interesting that we were talking about Uber and getting a ride if you went to the range. This is the kind of stuff we talk about on the Daily Gun Show every weeknight at midnight Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific. We just chat about guns. We don't listen to whatever the news of the day is. We talk about gun shops every single day. We talk about movies and we talk about other things, history, and like this, going to the range or the gun shop with Uber, and then to add to that, if you were blind. So that's the kind of stuff we talk about. I'm ending the Instagram side. So, nope. We had 26 people watching over there for that little portion of the conversation, including Gunstreamer. And we got Night Strike watching, so we have 2 of the big alternatives to stupid ass YouTube that sucks. Listening to the chat tonight.
Yep.
Night Strike says the Dano is anti-dime bag. Well, he's Dano. You would have to book.
Just the merchandise, not the player.
Yeah,
You would have to book them.
that's right. That's where I got my name. Just
So
book 'em.
if California says that the stuff in the car must belong to the driver, you can't ever pick up, hookers and stuff, because then they would automatically assume you were the pimp.
That's a different kind of Uber.
But generally that is true. It is assumed to be the drivers. But if you are doing a paid-for service, i.e., a taxi or a rideshare business such as Uber or Lyft, there are others as well, and can prove that you are actually on a paid-for ride, which I can, because for every single ride I get what's called a waybill for insurance purposes, where it lists the passenger's name, address, where they're going to, where they're coming from, and it shows, and it's time-stamped. So I can show an officer that to prove that I am indeed on the clock, so to speak, driving as a contractor for another company and performing their service by taking that passenger to some destination.
So I guess I just want to clarify, if they had a bag of nickels, would that be the same consequences, or?
Now that's a dime bag I would be interested in.
The question is, which kind of dime bag is worth more?
I like the one you're showing.
That looks like a bunch of silver in there to me. Maybe they're just dirty, but
What is it? Pre-1964? Is that the?
I look at the edges, and these look like complete edges. Not the bimetal.
Yeah, they look like the real deal.
Look like silver freaking coins. So maybe this is just a picture. See, the couple of these look like they could be bimetal, but these here don't. And there's a whole bunch like that. Get good at looking at the edges of the coins. That's how you know if you've got a stack of dimes or dollar dimes or $2 dimes or dime dimes. Who's going to know? I guess that's our cue. Getting boring. We're ending the show. So we tried to end it before, but it got kind of interesting. They're talking about Uber. Thanks for jumping in, Dano. Maybe the conversation has perked back up there. Like kicking gasoline into the afterburners. We couldn't even slow it down at that point. We just had to ride it out.
So, because I knew Ellis didn't have the energy to do it, because he doesn't even have the energy to mute himself when he yawns.
Yeah,
I didn't yawn.
Called out.
Yeah, that was me.
It wasn't Ellis that yawned.
Oh, damn.
I mean, I could throw him under the bus and just keep quiet, but it wasn't him. It was me.
Okay, Ellis, I apologize. I hope you have that.
It's my cat's fault. He started it.
Oh, by the way, I came up with a name for the dog, and I'm going to do some sort of a contest for whoever can come up with whoever can guess the name. And
Are you going to share some pictures when you actually do the unveil of the name?
pictures of the name, like in writing,
No,
or
pictures of the dog. We all want to see the dog in different poses.
the dog's already been on Instagram for one thing, and Russ had the dog before I stole it, and he had it all over Instagram also. So dog's already widely known on Instagram.
I have a question about this. If I contribute to the giveaway, can I know the name in the offline chat?
No.
Oh.
The only person that probably can figure it out is Russ because of his, legal papers or whatever that we're having to file. But yeah, so he's the only one that's like would be disqualified.
I bet he named the dog Angelina.
Is it awkward if you name your little dog after your co-hosts of the show?
No, it's not. It's all right.
Or maybe he named it Angie.
Maybe I named it Dano, the girl dog. Maybe I named it 9mm. Well, then I would have spelled it best. Would probably end it. Less than a dog would hate me.
Well,
All right, well, so that was a little bit of fun there. Appreciate the people that are supporting the show in the various ways. We're trying to say thanks with other things that we can do, and we'll continue to keep moving along. It's that middle time of the year, so people like to get out and do the things that you do during summer when school's out and you've got your vacation time, and that's when all these smaller things, smaller efforts, smaller projects are getting lean. So any attention and efforts you can give to them are appreciated. And see the people over on the gun channels are going to get, the channels will get a little, week off here and there. Just other things coming up. So give them that encouragement. Let them know your wish if they were back, or when you see them back, be sure to watch the shows. It's a little bit of encouragement that keeps people motivated. And then we've got good stuff, later on in the year when everybody's psyched and all the good stuff starts happening again, and everybody's, sitting in front of their computers every night. We're not starting all over every year. So it's always kind of weak during these middle times, and I'm encouraging people to check out the channels and the shows that are over there. It can get tough sometimes. All right, so I guess with that, we'll take off. Angelina, anything going on California ways?
No, not really. Just buy things from Allen Anchor and use gun channels as your promo code to save absolutely no money at all. And yeah, that's about it. It's really 20% though.
I'm confused.
That's a permanent condition for you.
Not really.
Does anybody have I have over here using the Instagram. I got my phone tied up. Does anybody have a quote to end us with this evening? To end it?
I got a long one.
Sure, that'll be good because I need to go find the exit music anyway.
Okay, so this quote is from Thomas Paine, who's writing in a Pennsylvania magazine in July of 1775. The supposed quietude of a good man allures the ruffian, while on the other hand, arms like law discourage and keep the invader and the plunderer in awe, and preserve order in the world as well as property. The balance of power is the scale of peace. The same balance would be preserved were all the world destitute of arms, for all would be alike. But since some will not, others dare not lay them aside. And while a single nation refuses to lay them down, it is proper that all should keep them up. Horrid mischief would ensue were one half of the world deprived of the use of them, for while avarice and ambition have a place in the heart of man, the weak will become a prey to the strong. The history of every age and nation establishes these truths, and facts need but little arguments when they prove themselves. That was Thomas Paine in July of 1775.
Before he was hung by the British.
Yeah, well.
Nobody's perfect.
Socrates had to drink hemlock too, Truth tellers don't do real well.
The guys and gals at gunwebsites.com encourage you to take a CCW class every year, practice at least once a month, and carry every day. Thanks for watching gunwebsites.com. Guys.
Ha ha ha.